Hey everyone, Rick here with the Ditch Pig. As you saw in the last video, if you watched it, we've got a fresh oil change in the pig. I went to work a couple days in a row. Everything seemed fine. On the way home, I noticed the oil pressure was right around 20 psi. Normally when this thing's at an idle up to temp, it's right around the 30 mark to 35 mark. And it's not now. One thing about the Holly gauges is when you get done driving it, it locks in where your all your readings were. So water temperature was 195-ish. The volts were just shy of 14, and the oil pressure was at 20. That's at an idle. 900 RPM is where I idle this thing. 20 is not good. Not sure what the deal is, but we're going to delve into that today and try and figure it out. I've talked to a couple people right off the bat. The first thing they asked me was, what are you using for a filter? And when I told them Fram, they didn't seem too impressed. I don't know what the deal is with Fram filters. A lot of people use them, but the people that don't use them really seem to hate them. So that's one thing I'm going to look into. I did buy another filter. I bought more oil. But the first thing that I'm going to check is the oil pressure. That has the electronic sensor, the sending unit in the back of the block. Now I have the oil pressure on the gauge in the dash, but I also took on the handheld and put that oil pressure on there to see if they matched up, and they do. Both right around the 20 to 23 psi at an idle. So just to verify that, to make sure that that sensor's not messed up, I did go out and buy a mechanical oil pressure gauge. Picked this up at Napa. I also bought the fittings that go with it so I can get it into the block. There's a bunch of them in there. From what I understand, I need the 16 millimeter one for the oil port on the side of the block. And while I was at Napa, I also picked up a Napa Gold filter for a 6 liter. So right off the rip, we're going to try and get that mechanical gauge hooked up and see if that matches up to what it's saying on the dash and on the handheld. If it doesn't line up, I'll buy myself another oil pressure sensor. If it's not that sensor, I'm going to drop this filter on and see if that makes the difference. I'm hoping it's one of those two things. Hopefully it's the filter, because that's going to be the cheapest. But if it isn't, the next step is I'm going to run this engine flush through it. Then I'll change the oil, and hopefully that remedies the problem. If none of that works, things get a little bit more technical after that. We're looking at maybe like a crank bearing, rod bearing, maybe a cam bearing, because they have a tendency to come loose on those from the journal. If it's that, it's not going to be good. So fingers crossed for the quick fix. We'll give this a crack right off the bat just to see what the deal is, where we're at, and then we'll go from there. So the oil port that I'm going to use is on the driver's side of the block, down by the bottom of the power steering bracket. It's right here, and it's got a hex head in it. It's number 8, but the ratchet won't fit in there behind my power steering line. So I'm going to have to go old school and try and get this to work. So I got it loose. I had to give it a little tap with a tiny ball peen hammer to get it to break it loose, but it's coming now. What are you doing, wienerhead? This thing's doing laps around. Alright, so the one that we need for this is M16 by 1.5. Matches up to our plug. If any of you have never hooked these up before, really simple. Slide this nut piece onto the hose. Take this piece and slide it on with the taper down. Slide it into this piece. Slide it all the way in till it hits the bottom of this. Then you just thread this on. Once you give this little crank, it crimps that thing into there, so it can't come out. This stuff's all pipe thread, so you don't need it super tight. Alright, she's ready to put in the block. Once it's in there, you just do the same thing on this end. Obviously with that line on there, it's going to be a huge pain in the ass. That fitting takes a 3/4 wrench but that's too long to deal with my drag link and the cross member and everything else, so a stubby is your friend in this situation. One of those rare instances in life where a small tool is better. Then you can thread this thing on. And we're ready for the gauge. Alright, we're ready for action. Okay, let's flash this thing up and see what we got for oil pressure. So we want our oil pressure to be different from there to the gauge down there. We're almost like 27 or so. You see on here, it says that we're at 28 PSI. So let's check the gauge. Yep. It's also puking out a shitload of oil in the back. So yeah, I must not have had that tight enough or shoved in all the way, but regardless, it did its job. We know that the sensor's right. That means we're on to the next step, which is the oil filter. We'll swap that out, see if that makes a difference, which will mean more oil all over the place, but hopefully that fixes the problem. That filter was like 17 bucks. That's a lot cheaper than that sensor, which is, I think it was like around 90 some at Napa. If it is a filter, that's good. But I would also rather have it be that sensor than a cam bearing that came loose or another bearing that's starting to go. Okay, so fingers crossed, because this is what I want it to be. The filter's just, there's something wrong with it. It's not allowing the oil to go through it at the proper pressure. So we'll fill that up and I'll get that other filter off. Okay, so the plug's back in. Oil pressure gauge all packed up again. Did its job. We know that the pressure is the same from sensor to the actual mechanical sensor. Who knows, maybe someday I might hard mount that in underneath the hood so that I have it to look at if I need to see the oil pressure under there, and always have a mechanical gauge to cross-reference. So I took the Fram filter off and filled up the other filter, ran into a bit of a roadblock. I got this filter supposedly for a 6 liter, and if you notice, the divot that's in this is not in this. So when I thread this filter on, there's like a 1/4 inch gap because this goes up to meet the base, this doesn't. So looks like I'm gonna hop on the bike and head to D-. Canadian Tire is about the only thing that's open right now, so it's a Sunday. So I gotta try and find an oil filter for this thing. Alright, I'm back from Cambodia Tire and picked up another filter. I grabbed a Castrol one, they had those there. Same number as the Fram filter, just a little different letters in the front. Looks like a nice filter, so we'll give that a shot. I already threaded it on to see if it would fit. Where, like I say, this one would bottom out here, and it didn't have the divot. So that didn't work. I don't know what the deal is there, but I'll take that back to Napa and find out what happened. So anyway, let's put some oil in this thing and thread her on. Alright, so we gotta check the oil here because we definitely lost between a half a liter and a liter pulling that filter off. The stuff's so clean it's hard to see. Yeah, so it's down 1 dot. I think 1 dot equals a liter, so we'll jam some more in her. Now we're good. Alright, let's flash this thing up and see what it says. Well, it still says 27, so whatever the issue is, I'm gonna guess it's still there. Yeah. Okay, the next step. I take this for a drive, get it up to operating temperatures. I'm going to pull that Castrol filter off and put that old Fram one back on it, run it with the engine flush in it for 5 minutes after I get back from warming it up. Change oil, put the Castrol filter back on, and hopefully that does something. I put the old Fram filter back on, topped up the oil. Now let's get this thing warmed up, and I'll put the engine flush in it and try to see if that helps. We're sitting at about 195 for coolant temp, so it's fully warmed up for this thing. We're sitting at 20 psi oil pressure now that it's warmed up. Dump that stuff in the engine and we gotta idle it for 5 minutes at slightly above an idle. So we'll do that and change the oil and see what happens. Before I start this timer, I'm gonna set the idle up a bit. Let's do 11:10 will work. She'll be on cruise control. See you in 5 minutes. So, just like in the last video, once again, I got my 15 mil, the funnel, the drain pan. Let's get the oil out of her. Well, I didn't turn the camera on for this because I didn't think it'd be that exciting. But that stuff came out of there spraying out like straight varnish. Coated my pants, coated everything else, just splattering everywhere. It wasn't like oil anymore, that's for sure. So just a heads up, if you do an engine flush, that's what's gonna happen. It's been a while since I did one. It was probably 10 years ago, 12 years ago probably I did one. I had a sticky lifter and I ran that and it fixed the problem. So I don't know what it's gonna do for this, but we'll give it a shot. Yeah, look at this stuff. It's just like water. Just goes everywhere. And it's super hot. Yes, sir. I think the next thing I'm gonna do is just dump some fresh oil down through so it rinses the rest of that crap out.
Castrol GTX.
That should be good for 5 additional horsepower right there.
Wow.
I'll tell you what, I'd settle for 5 more PSI oil pressure. Yes, sir. Mint. All right, let's give this thing a shot. I'll be 100% honest, I'm not super optimistic that this is going to solve the problem. From here on out, I don't know what route to take next. I mean, it could be the oil pump, the relief valve sticking, it could be the O-ring on the pickup tube, even though both of those things were brand new almost 2 years ago. Something could have happened to them. And then, yeah, after that, it's bearings. Chances are, when I hit this key, if it's not running up over 30, I'm just going to keep driving it the way it is until it does get worse. I mean, 20 is not the end of the world, but I'd like more. But I mean, I ran my Gen 1 small block, the 60 over one that I had, probably for a couple years with under 10 psi oil pressure. And I smoked it every time I got a chance. Like, I didn't worry about it, right? Because it was like, who cares? If it blows up, it blows up. Anyway, let's give her a shot. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. Oh well. So anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, just an update to the oil pressure problem. Today when I was leaving work, it hit 20 psi at an idle. Maybe a little bit more because it wasn't fully warmed up. But as I was leaving, Buddy comes out the door, all Johnny Two Feathers. He goes like this for me to spin it. So I give her a raunch in first gear, and in first gear this thing spools up pretty fast, and you gotta let right off of it. So anyway, I did that, and then going down the driveway from work, I noticed in third gear, at about 1200 RPM, I'm making 40 PSI oil pressure. I'm like, what the hell? So I let off of it, I put the clutch in and let it idle, and it's reading above 30. So what I think happened was the pressure relief in the oil pump got stuck a little bit open, and it was bleeding off the oil pressure. Then when I gave it that raunch, it spiked the oil pressure, the relief opened a little bit. When it came back down, it went back to where it's supposed to be. I don't know if you can see that or not right now, but we're running right around 30 at an idle. So I think that's what the issue was, so problem solved. just an update. I'll let you know in the next video if it stays around.